we go. So my name's Mandy and I'm the Education Specialist for the LIFT project. And I want a special welcome to anyone that is joining us for the first time. Thank you for coming along to be a part of this. The goal of these Zoom monthly meetups is to provide a space for people to connect over our topics of wellbeing, and also a place where hopefully you leave feeling inspired and a little bit empowered with some more ideas and advice on how you can boost your well-being. We have a really exciting topic for you today that Darren is going to share a little bit on. Once he has shared his amazing thoughts for us today, we will be having a discussion over about 3 reflection questions to see how this main idea Darren is sharing with us can be applied to our lives, the importance of it, and what we can do about it as well to help boost our well-being. So these links will be available to the recording afterwards if you want to have a look at it later on your login on the liftproject.global. So you can always check that out afterwards if you'd like to rewatch the recording and still be a part of our topics for the month. So Darren, I'm going to hand over to you now for your thought for the month.
Thank you, Mandy, and it's nice to see you all here. I actually think that our newsletter didn't get the communication quite as well, so we're few in number, but that's nice because it's quality, not quantity.
Yes.
And actually, I think I could even see in the background there, I think I recognise Denise on the on the mini tramp. I think she's turned her camera off now, but anyway, if I don't know if Denise, I know, is that Denise? It is.
Oh, I love it.
Are you still? I know Denise is actually working in China, but
wow.
She's visiting Australia. We caught up just about a week ago. So anyway, nice to have you here.
So I'm turning my video off, but I'm bouncing while I listen.
Are you still in China? Are you back in China, or you're still here?
I'm back in China, and we had 12 physicians last night at the class I told you about, Darren, and we've got someone here from China. I think Heather, who's joining us today to listen. So yeah, all things ahead with LIFT in China soon, hopefully. I'll talk to you later.
Awesome. Well, here we go. We've got all parts of the world represented, so really nice. So hey, really nice to have you here. I'm going to share my screen because I've got a wellbeing thought for you today, and then and we've got some reflection questions where I think as a small group like this, we might be able to all just stay together and have a chat at the end of it. So I'll share my screen with you. And I'll just check to make sure. All right. Mandy, can you just give me the thumbs up if you are seeing that okay? All right. Awesome. All right. Well, welcome once again to our LIFT meet. And we really just want this to be a positive place where you can come to and, as I said, get a wellbeing thought, reflection point, and then connect with others as well. So I want to share a story. So with that view that we want this to be a positive place, it's okay. I just want you to say it's okay to have some fun as we go through. So I'm going to share a story with you, and I hope that you enjoy it, because this story is about my next door neighbour and a great mate of mine. His name is Jim Hawkins, and I share this story with permission. But here's a picture of Jim and I at an event we did. Actually, this was last year. But Jim and I Jim's a great guy, right? So everyone loves Jim, and that's a beautiful thing. In fact, everyone loves Jim so much that when in grade 6, my youngest child Caleb, he was invited to do like a speech on someone that he admired and looked up to and would like to be like when he grew up. And did he choose his dad? No, he chose who? Jim. He decided to do his speech on Jim. So, Jim's a great guy. So I thought, right, well, given the fact that Jim is such a great guy, here's this little story I'm going to share about Jim. So a number of years back, Jim and I decided that we were going to, as a collective, our families were going to go on an international trip. And we thought, what's some amazing international experience we can take our kids on? Because then, our parenting would have been complete. We would have given them the international thing. And anyway, so we decided we were going to go all out and we took them on a Mediterranean cruise. I know, we're amazing dads, aren't we? We almost had to sell a kidney to do it each, but nonetheless, it was a great experience. So we went on this international cruise, and Jim, we were connecting when we were there. We're traveling around, seeing these different places, and Jim starts talking, as it always does. We talk about what impact, what difference can we make in the world? And he started talking about this idea that, hey, I'm getting into a bit of photography. And he was thinking, hey, maybe, that could be part of his contribution to be, to this, do this photography piece. Well, it turns out, he says, what I've been thinking about, I've checked out on these new iPhones, this was some time back, they had that panoramic feature where you could, you could scan the horizon and you get this full pano view photo. And he said, you know what, if I'm going to do this, I'm going to do this properly. He said, I'm thinking there's no reason you can't do panos instead of this direction. You could do vertical type panos. So, Jim was starting to think maybe this is his unique contribution. He would specialize in vertical panos. And so here is the pano that he took. His first feature act was a pano of the Eiffel Tower. And here it is. Ta-da! Now, I don't know if anyone's ever done a pano. You can notice if you don't keep it really still, things can go a little bit wrong. But anyway, here's Jim's pano. And I thought, you know what? Being the kind, caring, supportive friend I am, if Jim really wants to make his mark and get this out there, then probably I need to get behind and support him. So I took it upon myself to post this photo to a photography website where you can actually sell your merchandise, your fine productions. And so here it is. I put it up for Jim just to help him out. You want a friend like me, don't you? So I put it on the website, and here I wrote it here that this was an original Jim Hawkins panoramic masterpiece of the Eiffel Tower. Starting bid, $300. I thought, I'm going to help to launch his career like a good supportive friend should. Well, unfortunately, it didn't quite go to plan. You can see that it did attract quite a few comments, but most of them not really that affirming, like this one here. I'll pay you to take this off the site. It looks like a wax candle. I like wax candles. What's not to like about wax candles? But anyway, for a moment I thought, hey, there might be a business model in this. Maybe people could pay us to take it off the site, but I figured it's probably not sustainable as a business model. So anyway, we had to move on. So Jim, then I've started to think, you know what, maybe the vertical panos aren't my thing. However, then we had this little moment. As I was walking, we were doing this carnival cruise, and as I'm walking along the cruise, there's this little section where they would showcase photos that are taken of people that were on the cruise doing their thing. Anyway, as I'm walking along through this area, and they had these big screens showcasing the photos that had already been taken, this confronts me. Here is a picture of Jim Hawkins looking his best. And now it turns out Jim wasn't keen on this, but his wife was. And so she dragged him along and the kids, and he was required to do this. Now, I've taken some creative liberty here. I'm thinking to myself, what actually went on here that caused Jim to do this? And the only thing I can think is that he thought, hey, I know my mistake. Before I was trying to take these, panoramic photos, but the mistake I was making, I shouldn't be behind the camera. I should be in front of the camera. And so maybe this was the authentic contribution that he was thinking that he could make. And then I thought, maybe what would happen? Maybe he actually gave a fair bit of thought to this. Maybe he was thinking about, hey, if I'm going to get into sort of modeling, then maybe I really should think about, what should be my signature move? Should it be, the blue steel sort of, this sort of look, or should it be the hands over the head, or what would be it? And then eventually, he's standing in front of the mirror, testing these things out. And eventually he arrived at the classic, hand over the hand, sort of bent head. So this is what I'm imagining in my mind. How much truth there is to that, I'm not quite sure, but it's fun thinking about. And so anyway, once again, being the kind, supportive friend and neighbour that I am, I decided I'd put this photo on the photography website as well. So this is how I advertised it. A portrait up for auction, a portrait of the man, Jim Hawkins, demonstrating his signature hand-over-hand pose. Starting bid, $50. Well, look at this mean photography critic, as they refer to themselves, asked the question, who on earth is Jim Hawkins? Never heard of him. I wish he would do the hand over his face pose. Not a classic. That's just critical for being the sake of being critical. I just don't know what's going on here at all. So anyway, things didn't go so great in terms of Jim's forte into the photography arena, either behind the lens or in front of the lens. It didn't look like that was it for him. However, the story doesn't end there. Jim bumped into this guy here. This is a remarkable fellow that I have the greatest admiration for. His name's Dennis Perry. And Dennis was a high-end corporate man. He was working for a successful company that were looking to expand into some of the islands of the South Pacific. And anyway, he said he was on this trip. He'd been there for a couple of days doing some, seeing if there was some business opportunities. And on his way home to the airport, as he drives past what looked like a rubbish tip, he said he saw people foraging around, including kids. And he said something compelled him just to stop the car. He stops the car in his suit and shiny shoes and walks out and asks these people what's happening. And it turns out that this is where they live. This is where they subsist. And there's something in his soul that just said, not on my watch is this happening. And so he postponed his flight home. He actually then went into, discovering what he could do and set up a charity called Operation Food for Life, which now today feeds thousands of people who were living literally on the rubbish tips, looking for for what they can find. And Jim met Dennis, and what Dennis talked about is the need for education, the need to break these cycles of poverty. And he said, in order to do that, we need spaces to do that. We need something, we need classrooms and we need schools. And it just so happens that Jim is a builder and a very successful one at that. And so he said, I can help. This is a space this is a gift that I can give. And so they started to build these schools. And here's the construction phase. Here's the completed product. Here are the kids that they've taken off these environments and then started to give them education, upskill them for life. Here's a picture of the indoor of one of the classrooms. They've now got little sites, like little orphanages where the kids can come along, and it's just amazing. They feed people. The work is totally amazing. And here's my last photo of the inside. And yes, I did Photoshop that at the end there. But here's the thing: talk with Jim, and he'll talk about the tremendous lift that he gets from being associated with something like this. We rise by lifting others. And so here is my question for you. Jim wasn't the photography thing that was his piece, but what it was is making this kind of contribution through this unique skill sets that he already has. And so my question to you today is this: what is your gift to give? What we know, and what I'm a big believer, is that we all have these gifts, these abilities. Some have massive amounts of them, some smaller, but it doesn't matter. The question is, what is your gift? And how can you use that to give back in some way? It's not so much what you do, it's how it contributes that matters. As you know, I'm based at a university, and so I spend at least some of my time, sometimes a lot of my time, reading academic journal articles. And most people would think that would be the most boring thing on the planet. These academic articles that people have done these studies and and they drone on with all this technical language. But for me, when I'm reading these things, I'm actually in my head as I'm learning, discovering some sort of new insight. For me, the thing that's going on in here is I'm thinking, okay, how could I package this information? How could I communicate this information in a way that someone else could benefit from that? And so for me, the task, even though it might be quite a menial, mundane task of reading these articles, for me, it's a pathway to actually making a difference, making a contribution in some way. That's my gift to give. My wife, she's an amazing director of plays and musicals. She teaches drama. And for her, it's not about actually putting on a stellar performance. What it is for her, she sees that the kids and the young people that are through that process, who grow confidence and then can get on a stage and say some lines or even sing a song. For her, that's the whole point. right? Because it's her give back. I always say that's her gift to give. And I'm asking the question, what is your gift to give? I did some presentations to a community group one time up in Queensland, which is a state north of where I live. And at the end of the presentation, a gentleman said, "Hey, there's someone I'd love you to meet. Come with me." And he took me. I don't know where we're going. We drove to a nursing home, and we got to this nursing home, and he led me in. And this gentleman was a doctor, and he said, "This is one of my patients. I'd really like you to meet her because she is at the moment the oldest living woman in Australia." Right? She was 111 years old at the time. Anyway, and she was sprightly, and it was really nice. But she was in bed, and I got to chat with her for a long time. And I said, and we talked about, you know, what she does. And she had this little thing that she was compiling. She said, "Oh, I love to compile the newsletter for our nursing home." So that was her gift to give. You know, even in the situation, she wasn't hypermobile anymore, but that was her gift to give, and it made her come alive. You know, in lesson 9 of the LIFT project, which is called Giving is Living, I talk about this, and I share this graphic, this whole idea that I've come to completely and wholeheartedly believe that the sweet spot in life, if you want to find the sweet spot in life, it's where you find this intersection of what you love, right? So ask that question, what do I love to do? What you're passionate about, what you're good at, right? And we all have these skill sets, these strengths, but then scaffold on that this third piece, and that is, how do I use what I love and what I'm good at to make some sort of difference in the world, you know, to serve the world in some sort of way? And I believe that that is where our life comes alive. It's actually where well-being really starts to be experienced and manifest in its fullest form. And so here's my well-being for this month. Last month, we dealt with that whole idea of identity, you know, and who do you think you are? And we arrived at this point where we said that, you know what, you are a person of value. And what I want to add to that this month is that not only are you a person of value, but you have a gift to give, right? And your mission, if you choose to accept it, and I'd really encourage you to do that, is to think creatively. You know, how can you use the gifts that you have, right? The thing that you're good at, the thing that you love, how can you use that in some creative way? Small or big, it doesn't matter, but to actually make some sort of meaningful difference in the world, you know, some sort of measurable difference, even just to lift one person's life, because we rise by lifting others. And so we're going to keep coming back to this theme. And I wanted in these, you know, the first 2 monthly meetups is to address these 2 themes of, you know, you are a person of value in month 1. And this time, you know, you have a gift to give. The extent to which you embrace that and internalize that and let that permeate into your psyche will have a tremendous impact on your well-being. And that's what we want for you. And so that's my thought for this month. You're a person of value and you have a gift to give. Get creative. What would that look like to give it? So I'll hand it back to Mandy, and we've got some reflection questions that we'd love to spend a bit of time chatting about. Thanks, Mandy.
Awesome. Thanks heaps, Darren. I did notice on Jim's photo, someone did like the Eiffel Tower photo, but the username was "Don't give up your day job."
That's right.
But there's something. He got a like for that one. So, you know.
He got a like. He did
Gotta
get a
take
like.
that, right? Thanks so much for sharing that, Darren. I love your stories. So we have a few questions that we would love to just discuss with you all and get your thoughts on as we reflect on what Darren has just shared with us.